Welcome to the 100 Authors in 100 Days conversation, where we explore writers, entrepreneurs, luminaries, all making a positive impact in the world. This is a place where we get to hear the story behind the story. And I'm excited today because I get to have a conversation with none other than Samantha Jean Epperson. And she is an Army veteran from the 10th Mountain Division at Fort Drum, New York. She is a co-founder of the Facebook page Veterans to Hire, which is a private group. And in the details below, I'll have her email if you want to get a hold of her after we have this conversation. And I'm excited to introduce her to you because she is also one of the co-authors for the Latinas 100 Project, a book that we're launching this December. So not only is she part of the 100 Authors in 100 Days, but also part of the Latinas 100 Project. And I want to welcome you to the show and ask you, tell us a little bit about how you heard about the project and a little bit about your more details about your background.
So Melissa Washington, she is a veteran and she has her own women veterans group, and we became Facebook friends. And one day I was just scrolling on Facebook and she said that there was a veteran who is writing a book about Latinas, and I saw that and I was very interested, and that's how I became a part of the project.
Yes, I love Melissa. So I love her organization as well. I was reading through your essay, and for those of you who are watching, for the Latinas 100 Project, everybody who's participating, all the wonderful women that are participating are writing an essay anywhere from 800 to 1,000 words. And Samantha sent me hers, and she was really authentic and very honest when she wrote her trajectory of some of the struggles that she had growing up. And I'm not going to read all of it, but I'll read some portions of it. And that way you can go out in December and buy the book. But why did you decide to write this particular essay and then share this particular story, Samantha?
So I feel like growing up, you know, in a lot of different ways, I'm not for sure how, but I felt like I got the message of the American dream. You go to college, you get that house, you get married, and life doesn't always happen that way. And I wanted the younger generation to know that, because maybe they're not told that, you know, sometimes things don't always go the way you want it in life, but that's not a bad thing. Sometimes life takes you where you need to be.
Yes, that's such an important message, because I wish somebody would have told me that everything that I was being told, primarily through society and what I was watching on TV, that wasn't real. Right? Like it's not true. Like, at least it wasn't for me. Maybe it is for some people where they have, you know, all those things. You know, you graduate high school and then you move on to college, and somehow college gets paid for mysteriously, right, by someone who's writing the check. But if someone would have told me, like, if someone would have been like the raw truth, I think I would have done a lot better. And this is really the reason why we're doing the project, is because a lot of the stories that are being shared by women like you, you're really sharing the details, like, hey, it didn't work out quite as how I planned it. So in your essay, I also see, so you were at the university, right? How many years did you do university before you decided to go into the Army?
So I started Texas Tech University the fall of 2002, and I graduated August of 2007. But I don't think I put this in my story. I did have to take a semester off from tech, because at that time, when you hit 60 hours, you have to declare a major. Well, I enjoyed being at Texas Tech, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah. So I had to take a semester off.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, sometimes it isn't just do your 4 years and then another year or two for masters and then, your PhD. It just doesn't work. So when you were in college, what were you studying?
I got my bachelor's degree in human development and family studies.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then did you finish that while you were in the Army, or how
Oh,
did
no,
that work?
I got my bachelor's before I joined the military.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm always really curious why women decide to join the military.
So for me, okay, in August of 2007, that's when the economy started to go down.
Yeah.
That's when it started to tank. And I was living in the Dallas area with my uncle and aunt, and I was working a lot of part-time temporary jobs. And then I had to move back to my hometown where I graduated high school, and it was the same thing. I was working a temporary job, and then I was unemployed, and for me to get an unemployment check, and I mean, I was doing this anyway, looking for jobs. And I remember I came across a mental health specialist for the Army. And when I saw that, I was like, well, the mental health part sounds cool.
Yeah.
But with the Army, that's a huge commitment. And
Yeah.
so I went to the recruiter station. It's kind of funny. I went all dressed up professional. And I went in, and the recruiter's like, how can I help you? And I was like, well, I want to know more about this mental health specialist position. And as often because the Army's a lot, you can't just tell somebody about it in a day. So every time he was available, I went. And one day he told me, we can start this paperwork process, and up to a certain point, if you decide that you don't want to join, that'll be fine. And I told him, no, if I'm going to see you as often as I am, I'm going to make a decision. Mm-hmm. And so I prayed about it, and I believe that God was like, you're going to be all right. And I went to the recruiting station the next day, and I was like, let's do this. And that's so not me.
Yeah. So it was like almost something was pulling you towards that direction, right? So you went in as an officer, right? So you went
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So tell me about that.
So when I joined the military, I'm going to be honest, I didn't really do research, or I didn't know anything. I didn't know, there's officers, they're junior enlisted. Now in the Army, you have to go from junior enlisted to a non-commissioned officer, but I didn't know those things. So I didn't really understand or know that I could be an officer. But I will say I did. When I joined the Army, I did want to understand what service members go through, and I wanted to understand what veterans go through. So for lack of a better word, being at the bottom was a really good thing.
Mm-hmm. Because you got to see the enlisted version of the military.
You get to see from the bottom up. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was really important.
So what do you think is one of the biggest things that you learned while you were in the Army?
I think for myself, the biggest thing that I learned is that I am braver than I believe. I'm stronger than I seem. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I learned that in the military too. Because I remember getting out of the Air Force thinking, oh my God, I can do anything that I want. Like I just knew it. And the military gave me that. So it sounds like it did that for you too. And so what was the most exciting thing that you worked on, or the most exciting thing that you did while you were in the Army?
So one of the cool things that I got to do, I was a medic in the Army. And so me and another medic in my company, we had to go out to the range, and there were a lot of NCOs that were being taught by other NCOs, non-commissioned officers, how to properly teach their soldiers how to fire a weapon. And for me, that was really exciting, because a lot of those NCOs that day, even though they verbally didn't say it to me, they appreciated me being there. Mm-hmm. And I feel, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of people I felt that appreciated me when I was in the military, But this particular day, it was just different. I just felt like I was a part of something, even though I really wasn't.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that earlier before we started recording, we were talking about the other books that you also co-authored. Can you share a little bit about the stories that you shared in those books and the names and where we can find them?
So the first book, I talk about a little bit about my time, because when I wrote that story, I was already in the military.
Mm-hmm.
So I had written a little bit about my experiences and how I joined the military with the first book.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second book, I talk about some of the things that I had to overcome when I was in the Army.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So as I was reading your essay, in the third paragraph, you say, I struggled with learning growing up. I had a hard time telling when I was in, I had a hard time telling time when I was in the third grade. When I was in the fourth grade, a guy in my class said that we were going to the stupid people class. I was hurt because I was never called stupid before. From that point on, I started to consistently study so I could try to make good grades to prove that I was not stupid. So I was reading that and I was like, I can't even imagine like how difficult that must have been, but how proud you are of yourself, because look at how far you've come. Right?
Right.
Yeah. And then in here, I think you also mentioned you didn't grow up speaking Spanish, right?
Right.
So it was something, it was just like a learning, it was like a learning thing, right?
Like, some of me wonders if I had maybe a learning disability at the time that nobody knew about, or maybe at that time that wasn't a thing. I'm not for sure, but I can tell you that when I was in the third grade, we had moved to a different town, is where I ended up graduating high school. And even though I struggled with learning, there was something there for me, because I remember there was a guy sitting next to me, and he would always take all his books home. And I make fun of him because we weren't required to take all our books home.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him one time, which me asking is a smart thing. So I said, why do you take all your books home? And he said, I read it and that's how I learn and stuff. And I remember one day I decided to try it.
Yeah.
I took my books home and I read, and guess what? I did really good on the test, but then I stopped. I stopped doing that. And it wasn't until the fourth grade, when I was, told that we were going to the stupid people class, that, even though I stopped studying, my mind was like, you got to go back to that. And so I feel like what happened was me reading every day and me trying to remember. I really do believe that changed my brain. I really do.
So it was like you just didn't have the habits of what some of the other kids had, right? For them to.
I think it was habits, but I also think for some reason, my mind just, because I believe I'm super smart, but I do notice that with me sometimes, where my brain, it just doesn't click. And then later on, I'm like, why didn't it click earlier?
Well, I mean, everybody has a different learning style, because I remember when I was reading this, my heart went out, because I remember feeling stupid when I was growing up too in school, because I didn't grow up with English in the house. So it was just only Spanish, because my parents figured, well, when she goes to school, she'll learn English, but when she's in the house, it's only Spanish. So I had there was a huge language barrier. And we were always in these classes, like the teacher would take us and then we would go to this corner where all of those kids went.
Right.
And I always felt really ashamed of that. Like, oh, we're going to go where all the stupid kids go, because that's what I was being told.
Right.
Yeah, but little did I know it was because that was where all the ESL kids, English as a second language kids went. And but no one ever explained that to me as a fourth or fifth grader. Like no one ever said that. I just was being told that I was going where the stupid kids were going, which wasn't even, you know what I mean? Like when I read that, I was like, oh my God, I had that same experience. But in your case, it was a little different because it wasn't a language barrier. It was more like it was like you were going to a different place, right, with other kids.
If I remember correctly, they had the class divided into 3 separate groups. The students who learn really quickly, and then the students that sometimes learn really quickly and sometimes learn really slow, and then the kids that just learned really slow. And I fell into the kids that really learn slow, but there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're learning.
Yeah.
At that time, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I've always been like a slow learner too. But actually that has helped me because once I get an idea or a concept, like I just totally run with it because I'm not one of those people that just kind of skims through things. I'm like one of those people that goes really deep. Like I want to know what's really happening. I want to engage like deeply as opposed to just on the surface. And so I think that slows me down because most people don't do that, right? Most people are like, and then they're done with it, but then there's no depth in it.
Yeah.
So I think, it helps that I'm a slow learner for me personally. And then another thing that I love about your essay is that you mentioned like your English teacher, Mrs. Miller.
Miller, yes.
Yeah. And then, so tell me a little bit more about her.
So Miss Diller was a very strict 6th grade English teacher, but that's because she wanted us to be disciplined, and that's because she really cared. And I remember when I was getting ready to go to the 7th grade, we had to decide, are we going to take regular English, regular math, etc.? Are we going to take, more advanced class and honors class? And English as a subject, I just struggled with that, like nouns and adverbs and verbs and pronouns and predicate. That was, for me, that was just very confusing. And so I didn't want to take an advanced one if I was already struggling with, English just as itself, taking a regular class. And I remember I went to her desk and I can't remember what exactly she said, but she asked me why I wasn't taking an honors class. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge shock for me because I really struggled with English as a subject. I mean, I don't think I had a C in the class, but I really struggled with that class. And she was the first person that I can recall in my life that was like, without her verbally saying it, I mean, I was a 6th grader at the time, that I look back on it now, that basically said, you have a lot more to give.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you mentioned her. And then you also talk about government teacher named Miss Porter.
Mr. Porter, yes.
Oh, Mr. Porter. Tell me about him.
So this is kind of making me emotional.
Yeah. I know. That's why I love your essay because your essay is all about you feeling so grateful for these people. And it makes me cry too because I personally believe that if it wasn't for the teachers in my life, I probably wouldn't be here today. So when I was reading your story, I saw that in you too. I'm like, oh, look out of all the things that she could have written about, out of all the things she could have mentioned, because you've accomplished a lot, you go back to these teachers. And I just thought that was amazing.
So I'm gonna talk about Mr. Porter. So in high school, I wasn't an athlete. And if we're all real, athletes, are very valued in high school. And, I'm smart, but I'm not like a very good test taker when it comes to the SAT and ACT. Mm-hmm. So I had really bad SAT and ACT scores. And I remember Mr. Porter said in my class in front of a lot of the my peers who were athletes and, who did have high SAT and ACT scores, he said in front of everybody that one day that I was going to be in the Harvester Hall of Fame. Now, I graduated from Pampa High School in Pampa, Texas, and our mascot's a harvester. And as far as I know, the only harvester on the high school level in the United States. And when he said that one day I was going to be in the Harvester Hall of Fame, like, once again, I had somebody that saw something in me that I didn't see. And when somebody believes in you like that, when you struggle to believe in yourself, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And one day it is my goal to be in the Harvester Hall of Fame. It really is.
That's awesome. I love that. So you say here, my senior year in high school, I missed the top 10% by 2. I graduated high school with honors, along with 21 college credit hours in high school.
Yes.
That's awesome. I graduated 3.939 June 1st, 2002. And then you had applied for scholarships for over $60,000 worth of scholarships, and you didn't get any of them.
No.
So that's huge that you still went on to Texas Tech University. You graduated with a bachelor's degree in human development and family service and family studies. So you say here too that you were really fortunate because you had your parents pay for your first 60 hours of college. Yeah, and then you realize that not a lot of young people have that opportunity to have their parents pay for their college. So I'm sure your parents are so proud of you, right? What did they think when you told them that you were going to go into the Army?
So my mom, because she had asked me, so what did you decide? And I told her, I'm going to join. And she said that she believed that that's what I was going to do. And that was comforting for me, because for me, that was God saying, this is what I'm asking you to do. This is what you need to do. My dad, I'm going to be honest, at the time I wasn't talking to my dad. And so I'm not for sure how he found out that I joined the Army, but he found out. And then when I was stationed at Fort Drum, I found out that I might be deploying. Mm. And when I found out that I might be deploying, I had asked if we were going to get the opportunity to go home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And we were told that we were going to have those opportunities. So I didn't go home for Thanksgiving, but I did go home for Christmas. And I told my dad I wanted to meet up with him. And I had told him that I had joined the Army, which he already knew. But I had also told him that I wanted him to know that I might deploy. So.
Wow. So then here you say, I served in the Army honorably for 4 years, and then you got out. Since I have gotten out of the Army, all the jobs that you've had have been related to military veteran community. And then, you go on to say about the 2 books that you've been a part of and you're a co-author in, A Leap of Faith and Behind the Rank, which you can all find on Amazon if anybody's watching this conversation. So I love, one of the key things that I love about your essay is this recognition of the teachers, but also that there was a point in your life as a young girl where you didn't feel like you were as smart as the other kids, just like I did. I just never felt like I was as smart as the other kids. And we all have our different reasons for that. But then coming out of that, strong, and now you're a co-author, and you were in the Army, you did some cool stuff, you got your college degree, and you were able to accomplish all those things that maybe for a period of time you thought you might not be able to, right? And I think it's a completely an amazing, awesome, inspirational story. And one of the reasons why I wanted to get so many women together to share these types of stories is because we want to leave a legacy. We want to inspire the next generation. So if you when a young person picks up the Latinas 100 book and reads your story, what do you want them to get out of it at the end of the day? Like, what is your bigger message?
I think it's several things. And the first thing that I want them to realize is sometimes you have to be the one to start something. So, like in my case, for example, and I'm not saying everybody needs to go to college. That's not what I'm saying. But if you want to go to college, sometimes you've got to take that initiative. Like in my story, like my immediate family, I was the first one to go to college. So I didn't have anybody guiding me of this is how you apply for financial aid. This is how you apply, to university. I did that on my own. Yeah. I figured that out. Sometimes you have to take the initiative for what you want to do. And then the second thing that I want for whoever reads my story, whoever reads the book, is that sometimes you're going to plan for certain things in life and it's not going to happen. And you might feel like you deserve it because you do. You work really hard, but sometimes I believe in God. Sometimes that's not what he wants for you. He's got something better. Even though you think what you think you want or have is the best, he's got even something better for you.
Yeah, I found that to be true. I love that you share that. And then I always wanted like certain things, right? I want to do this. I want to, create a certain life. And then when it didn't happen, it was like God sent something so amazing I never would have imagined. I'm like, here I was thinking so small, and then God had bigger, amazing things that I could have just not even fathomed, like
yeah.
Some of the stuff that I was able to do, like I just could only dream of, yeah. Especially coming from where I came from a Latina family, working in the fields, picking strawberries, not knowing English, and being born and raised in the United States and still feeling like an outsider. Yet I was able to accomplish just as much as anybody else, if not more, right?
Yeah.
And every day I'm grateful because I recognize that. And so I love that you share that God will give you more than what you could ever expect.
Yes.
So I think that's just a beautiful, beautiful message. Is there anything else that you want to share with people watching? Where can people find you? And then what are your next projects? Are you working in any other projects?
So if anybody is looking for me, I am on Facebook, Samantha Jean Epperson. Epperson is my maiden name. I'm married now. As far as projects are concerned, I do want to finish my master's degree. Not for sure when, but I need to do it soon. And then one day when the timing is right, I do want to write a book about my life because there's so much more that I want to share. There's so many struggles that I've overcome, and I know that it'll help people.
Yeah, and this is in really writing this one story is the beginning of a series of other stories. So there's one of the things that I get with a lot of the writers that are participating in the book is like they have a hard time choosing which story to share, right? But one thing that I said it earlier is that your story is about thanking other people for helping you, and I just love that. So I want to thank you for being who you are and sharing this amazing essay and story and sharing it with the world and our project, the Latinas 100 project. And I look forward to being published with you, and I look forward to getting to know you even more with our interaction on Facebook and our interaction in the group. I just appreciate you, and I look forward to connecting more and connecting often. So thank you so much. And any final words?
I really like how you said that I thank people in the book, because honestly, yes, we put in our own hard work, but there's people along our journey that help us. And we have to remember that and appreciate. And not only that, to give back. And I'm not saying that everybody has to, write a story and put it in a book, but you go through things for a reason to help another person. And so you've got to keep that in mind. Because one day God will bring people in your life that might have been through one thing that you've been through. It might be several things, but I really do believe that's what life is about us growing and loving people and giving back and helping people, because we all struggle with things.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. All right. So thanks everyone for watching the 100 Authors, 100 Days conversation. I'm your host, Adriana, and I look forward to having you dialogue with us. In the notes before, if you want to get a hold of Samantha, just go ahead and check out the details in the bottom. Like she said earlier, you can connect with her via email and via Facebook, and I will see you all soon. Thank you, Samantha, for the conversation.
Thank you, Adriana, for all that you're doing for our community. I appreciate it.